We're racing a Michigan Sprint Enduro race in Battle Creek, Michigan at the Battle Creek Motorcycle Club. I didn't help myself by stalling and chopping the throttle here at the beginning. There's an antenna at the start of these races, and it picks you up when you get close. I'm plenty close enough here that this time counts towards my total time for the test. This is my first year racing the Michigan Sprint Enduro Series. I made it to 5 of the 7 races that were run this year. That's actually 3 weekends of racing. Round 2 was 1 day of racing on a weekend. Rounds 4 and 5 and 6 and 7 were 2 days of racing, Saturday and Sunday. I raced C40 plus in all of the races. I do need to throw out a few excuses about my race performance here. It was a pretty chilly morning, and I captured an image of the weather from my phone. It said it was 34 degrees. When I went out in the morning, shortly after 7, there was frost on the motorcycle and outside, but no ice had really formed. Shortly after 8 o'clock, when I went outside, I slipped and fell on some steps because ice had formed. Apparently the temperature had dropped below freezing right at 8 a.m. So sadly, I felt like someone beat me up before I got on the motorcycle, and I don't even have a good crash to talk about to go with it. This Yamaha hasn't been without its starting issues, and in this case I got one of the cases where about 1 out of every 50 tries or so it won't start without going through a clear flood procedure by holding the throttle open, and that cost me even more time at the start. You can probably hear me saying "oh no" in the video, and that's me because I'm in a lot of pain. And you can probably also tell I'm sitting down even a little bit more than normal for me during the test here. This sitting too much business is going to come back to haunt me a little bit later in this particular test. I'm getting past here, and one thing I really like about the Sprint Enduro format is that the time trial style starts where you're staged, meaning you're not really doing wheel-to-wheel racing. So there's no big scramble to get into the woods ahead of your competitors, and you're strongly encouraged, if not told, to yield to faster riders that catch you because they've already caught up to you at least 15 seconds and sometimes more depending on how far back they started. That makes life a little bit easier for me because I know that I need to yield for a rider when I hear him behind me. If I do happen to catch somebody, they're usually polite and get out of the way pretty quickly. I make a brief, half-hearted effort to try to catch up to the rider in front of me to see if I can pace him for a little while, but as you can see, it doesn't go too well for me. gotten to the portion of the course that's on a motocross track that eventually leads to a little 50 track. And this is probably the part of each cross test that I'm the least familiar with and the least suited to deal with. I have very little experience jumping, so some of these jumps that go into turns are pretty outside of my comfort zone, and I'm really not sending any of the jumps to any significant amount anyway. On top of that, I'm having a little bit of trouble standing up, so I'm seated too much during these passes through the motocross track, which is hurting my time and my ability to control the motorcycle. On a positive note, I really enjoy these sprint enduros that use a portion of the motocross track because they design the course routing so that you don't have any big gap jumps or scary things on the motocross track. So you can roll all of this probably at lower speed if you need to in order to get through it. So you don't have to become a motocross expert trial by fire in order to get through the test. Cool advantage to having the motocross track portion of the cross test at the end is that if you are off your pace, some of the riders from behind catch you, then they'll probably catch you near the end of the test, and that's where there's plenty of room. So in this case, I have room for a few riders to get past me, and because we're on the open motocross course, I can stay with them and stay on my pace and try to give chase and not have to worry about being too close or worry about me holding up another rider. There's a quick set of switchbacks here before we switch and go on to the 50 track, and I kind of come up behind the riders that already passed me and I get hung up a little bit. I don't blame these other riders, they already passed me, and I was hurting enough at this point that I was really thankful for the break, other than we didn't have a very smooth transition onto the 50 track. The rider in front of me seemed to have better drive out of the corners anyway, so even if I'd managed to sneak past him on a corner, I think he would have passed me in the next straight pretty easily. Shortly here, I'm going to learn a good lesson about making sure that I stand up and get into good rider position before I go over a jump. Unlike a lot of the other jumps that were on the track, this one does not have a tabletop, and I was so far forward sitting on the seat and up against the tank that I almost endoed over the front.